Tom Cruise shuts down. Joy Behar live. Truth bomb ends the View debate. Cold Tom, since you're here. Joy Behar said, her voice sharpened like a blade. We need to talk about something your fans and frankly a lot of Americans are deeply concerned about. Tom Cruise blinked. The lights were hot, the audience was watching, and the interview had been smooth until now. Your long-standing connection to Scientology. She continued, unfazed, arms crossed, eyes locked. There are people who say you've used your fame to bring others into a group accused of abuse, manipulation, even tearing families apart. How do you defend that? Tom, a hush fell over the studio. It was live TV. The audience didn't clap, didn't breathe. They waited. Tom inhaled slowly. He was ready to promote a film. This wasn't supposed to be a fight, but Joy was pressing. I'm here to discuss a project, Tom said evenly. A film hundreds of people worked hard on. This moment should be about celebrating that work. Joy leaned forward. You don't get to hide behind your movie, Tom. Not when you're the face of something with a history this dark. Don't you feel responsible for what's been done in Scientology's name? Tom shifted in his seat. I've never promoted harm. I've never forced anyone to believe anything. You're painting an entire group with the same brush because of allegations. That's not fair. Joy fired back. Allegations from dozens of people in multiple countries. Are they all lying, Tom, or just the ones who were your friends? He looked stunned, not by the question, but the setting. He wasn't expecting a confrontation. Not here. Not now. You've crossed the line, he said quietly. The line, Joy smirked. Tom, when people get hurt, there is no line. There's only truth. And just like that, the gloves were off. Tom glanced at Whoopi Goldberg seated nearby. Her face was taut. She wasn't intervening. He turned back to Joy. I've practiced my faith privately for years. I've spoken publicly about it, sure, but I've never told anyone what to believe. Joy's eyes didn't soften. But your silence helps a system thrive, one that punishes dissent. What do you say to the families that were torn apart because of Scientology's policy of disconnection? Tom's fingers tightened on the armrest. You're assuming I've seen that, or that I support it. I don't. So you deny it happens? She asked. I'm saying it's more complicated than you're willing to admit, he said. Joy leaned back, but her eyes stayed fixed. Complicated. That's what people say when they don't want to answer. Tom exhaled sharply. This is a hit job. I came here in good faith. You're twisting a film interview into a public interrogation. Call it what you want, she said, but the viewers deserve answers. The tension was unbearable. Even the producers backstage weren't sure whether to cut to commercial. This isn't a courtroom, Tom said. You're not a judge. You don't get to decide what's true based on headlines. And you don't get to walk into millions of homes, sell a movie, and pretend your beliefs don't matter, Joy replied. His voice grew firmer. Beliefs aren't crimes, Joy. But enabling abuse is, she shot back. There was a pause. The air was brittle. Tom's jaw clenched. You're turning this into a spectacle. That says more about you than it does about me. Joy's reply was cold. Sometimes the only way to get the truth is through fire. The camera zoomed in as Tom sat silently, eyes narrowed. He wasn't backing down. Not yet. The studio lights dimmed slightly as the second segment of The View resumed. The audience had not yet recovered from the searing confrontation that ended part one. What began as a light-hearted interview about Tom Cruise's latest blockbuster had spiraled into a live televised clash over deeply personal beliefs. Joy Behar sat forward in her chair, still poised like a coiled spring. Tom Cruise returned from the backstage area, expression firm, jaw tight. Despite the flare of anger moments earlier, he had chosen to return, not to defend himself, but to reclaim the conversation. Sunny Hostin broke the tense silence. Let's shift gears, she said gently. Tom, many of our viewers are still fascinated by your incredible stunt work. Can you share what drives you to keep doing them personally? Tom turned to Sunny, grateful for the change in topic. His voice remained composed, but the edge hadn't left. I love pushing boundaries, he said, and doing stunts is part of that. It's about authenticity, giving the audience something real. The crowd clapped almost in relief, but Joy was far from finished. As the applause faded, she interrupted. You talk about authenticity, Tom, she said sharply. But are you being authentic when you promote an organization accused of coercing its members and separating families? The temperature dropped again. Tom exhaled clearly, trying to remain steady. I've addressed this already, Joy. I'm here to talk about the film, not to relitigate my faith on daytime television. Joy shook her head slowly. You're one of the most powerful public figures in Hollywood, she said, voice raised slightly. When you lend your name to Scientology, you give it cover. You make people think it's okay. Tom's tone hardened. People have the right to choose their beliefs. I won't apologize for mine. Beliefs that hurt people. Joy pressed. Sunny looked visibly uncomfortable. Whoopi Goldberg rubbed her forehead. But Joy continued. There are court records, documentaries, survivors speaking out. You act like this is just some personal attack, but it's about accountability. Tom turned to her, voice low but intense. I don't ignore people's stories, Joy, but I also know when stories are weaponized. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations. She raised an eyebrow. So, they're all lies. I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Joy snapped. That the people who spoke out are exaggerating? That they're just bitter? Tom looked directly at her. I'm saying truth is more complicated than headlines, but complexity doesn't get ratings, does it? Gasps rippled through the audience. Joy's eyes narrowed. She had struck a nerve, and Tom had returned the blow. Whoopi interjected quickly. Let's take a breath, both of you. This is supposed to be a conversation, not a trial. Joy folded her arms. I'd say this is overdue. Tom ran a hand through his hair and sat back. Then why didn't you mention it before I came on air? Why didn't you let my team know this was going to be the focus? Joy didn't answer. The silence spoke volumes. He pressed on. You waited until we were live. You didn't want a conversation, you wanted a moment. And you got one. More gasps. The audience sat on edge. Viewers at home no doubt leaned closer to their screens. Twitter was already on fire. Joy's tone turned icy. You've had nothing but softball interviews for 20 years. It's about time someone asked the real questions. And ambushed someone while doing it, Tom retorted. Is that your idea of journalistic integrity? It's integrity, Joy snapped, to ask hard questions when it matters. Your influence doesn't put you above that. Tom leaned in. And your chair on this show doesn't give you the right to misrepresent who I am or what I believe. Whoopi tried again to mediate. Maybe we can... No, Joy interrupted. This is important. People need to know what they're supporting when they buy a movie ticket. And that's what this is about. Tom said, shaking his head. You want to punish me for my beliefs by discrediting my work. No, Joy said firmly. I want you to acknowledge your role in normalizing an institution that many people believe has done harm. Tom took a long pause, then calmly he replied, I believe in freedom of religion. I believe people can investigate and come to their own conclusions, but what I won't do is sit here while you reduce my life and convictions to sound bites. Joy's voice dropped a register. Then say it, Tom. Say that abuse is wrong. Say that disconnection, cutting off family members, is wrong. Tom stared at her. Abuse is always wrong. But will you condemn the practices? She pressed. I don't have enough evidence to speak for everything you're accusing, Tom replied carefully. But I've never endorsed separation or abuse of anyone. Joy didn't blink. So you're saying you don't believe the people who've come forward? I'm saying I don't believe painting everyone in a religion with the same brush is fair. The audience again shifted in their seats. The moment was no longer about faith or even Tom Cruise. It was about values, accountability, and the line between questioning and prosecution. Then Tom turned the tables. Let me ask you something. Joy, he said. She looked surprised. Do you believe people should be free to follow their own path, even if you disagree with it, of course? Then why is your first instinct to shame, not ask, I did ask, she snapped. You refused to answer. No, you demanded. You came here with a verdict, not a question. Joy stood her ground. I came here with facts. Tom stood too slowly. Then present them, not rumors, not headlines, facts. Whoopi stepped in physically now. Enough. This is going in circles, but the energy had shifted. The audience saw it. The viewers at home felt it. Joy tried one last line. If you can't answer that, says everything. Tom looked at her, calm now. No. It says you were never listening. He sat down again, arms crossed, voice still. I didn't come here to fight Joy. I came here to share something positive. You turned it into a courtroom. She raised her chin. Maybe because someone needs to. And maybe Tom replied, someone needs to remind you that conviction without compassion becomes cruelty. Silence. The audience murmured, not sure which way to lean. A pause, a breath. Then for the first time, the camera caught Joy looking uncertain. Whoopi Ever, the professional, took that cue. We'll be right back after this break. The screen faded to black. But the battle wasn't over. It had only moved to living rooms, Twitter threads, and comment sections around the world. As the show returned from its commercial break, the atmosphere remained tense. Tom Cruise and Joy Behar sat across from each other, their postures stiff, the unspoken challenge still lingering in the air. The other hosts looked uneasy, trying to balance professionalism with the volatile reality of the conversation. Whoopi Goldberg cleared her throat. Let's try to move forward. We appreciate difficult conversations, but we also want to ensure our audience hears a range of perspectives. Tom nodded politely, though his eyes stayed fixed ahead. Joy remained silent, her face a careful mask of composure, but her foot tapped rhythmically under the table, betraying her lingering frustration. Sonny Hostin, always measured, turned to Tom with a soft question, clearly trying to de-escalate. Tom, earlier you mentioned the connection between your values and your work. Could you tell us how your beliefs have influenced the roles you choose or the way you approach your craft? Tom welcomed the question like a lifeline. Absolutely. I look for stories that inspire, that push boundaries, and that speak to human resilience. That's what I value: transformation, overcoming obstacles. Faith plays a role in that. It reminds me of the power of belief and discipline. The crowd responded with modest applause. For example, he continued, when I did Mission Impossible, it wasn't just about explosions, it was about trusting your team, trusting yourself. That's a universal theme, Joy interjected. And yet trust is exactly what people say they lost inside your religion. The room fell silent again. Tom turned slowly to face her. You just can't let it go, can you? He said, not with anger, but with a kind of wearied disbelief. Joy leaned forward. Tom, I respect your talent, but public figures have a responsibility. You've publicly endorsed an institution that many believe has traumatized people. Tom's voice remained level, but a tremor crept into his words. And I've told you that I don't support any harm. You're assigning guilt without due process. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Joy responded coolly. It's more dangerous to ignore abuse. The tension crackled again. Then something shifted. Tom reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He hesitated, then opened it and read aloud. When I was 17, I met someone in the church who helped me when I was lost. I was poor, angry, and on the verge of throwing away my life. He didn't lecture me. He believed in me. That belief changed everything. He looked up. That's a letter I got 2 weeks ago from a young man I worked with on a mentorship program. That's my experience with the faith you keep demonizing. Joy didn't flinch, but she did pause. Tom continued. Have there been people hurt, maybe? Probably, like in any institution. But you're not asking for truth. You're demanding a confession, and that's not justice. That's theater. The studio was quiet. Joy replied, I think it's convenient to say it's theater when you don't like the questions. Tom leaned forward. And I think it's convenient to turn a movie interview into a trial when you want ratings. Whoopi stepped in again. Let's pause for a second. But it was too late. The confrontation had reignited. Tom turned back to Joy. You want me to condemn every accusation without knowing the full story. But what if I turned that logic on you? What if I said because some hosts in media have manipulated stories or attacked guests unfairly that you must be one of them too? Joy was silent. Tom pressed on. You'd call that unfair, wouldn't you? You'd say that your work speaks for itself. Well, so does mine, Joy finally responded. I'm holding you accountable because people look up to you. If you use your platform to support something dangerous that matters. Tom sighed. And I'm telling you that my support has helped people, saved lives. Maybe we don't agree on the institution, but don't erase the good because of the bad. The audience clapped. A few cheers erupted. The dynamic shifted slightly. Tom had reframed the debate. Sonny asked gently, "Tom, have you ever witnessed or reported abuse within the organization?" Tom shook his head. "No, I haven't. And if I had, I would have spoken up. I believe in accountability. I just don't believe in mob justice." Joy narrowed her gaze. "But what about silence? Isn't that complicity?" Tom met her eyes. "Not when there's nothing to report. Not when your silence is being interpreted as guilt, even when there is no wrongdoing. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was reflective." Then, unexpectedly, Sarah Haynes spoke up. She had remained silent for most of the confrontation. "I think what's hard here," she said, "is that we're living in a time when people feel betrayed by institutions, government, religion, media. Maybe that's what's fueling this tension. Not just what you believe, Tom, but what it represents to people who feel abandoned or hurt." Tom nodded. "That's fair. But let's not confuse institutions with individuals. You can challenge systems without crucifying people." The audience clapped again. Whoopi added, "Everyone has the right to speak and to be questioned, but we also have the right to be heard in full." Tom looked at her grateful. "Exactly." Joy spoke one last time. "Maybe we won't agree, but you should know this isn't personal. It's about responsibility." Tom smiled, but it was tired. "I know. But maybe next time, let's have the conversation before the cameras roll." The tension softened. The air cleared. A new commercial break began. This time the camera lingered for a moment longer. Tom looked off-screen, contemplative. Joy leaned back, still stiff but no longer combative. The war of words had paused. The fallout had begun. The studio's atmosphere was thick with tension as Part 4 began. Tom Cruise sat upright, his posture rigid, his knuckles pale as they gripped the edge of his seat. Joy Behar, unfazed, leaned back with a smirk that suggested she believed she had the upper hand. The rest of the panel sat in uncomfortable silence, save for the occasional shift or cough. The air felt electric, as though at any moment a spark might set the entire room ablaze. Joy pounced again. "Tom, if you're going to sit here and act like you're just an innocent movie star, you're insulting every viewer who's read the reports, the lawsuits, the documentaries. We're not stupid." Tom narrowed his eyes. "I never said anyone was stupid, Joy, but what I won't do is let this turn into a circus. I came here to speak about a film, a piece of art, and I've been treated like a criminal." Joy raised an eyebrow. "Art doesn't absolve complicity." Tom leaned forward, his voice tight. "And accusations don't equal guilt." Whoopi Goldberg, desperate to regain control, tried again. "Maybe we should move to audience questions, get a broader dialogue going." No, Joy snapped. He came here with decades of silence behind him. Today he talks. The audience was a mixed sea of frozen expressions. Some clearly supported Tom. Others looked at Joy with admiration. Still others were visibly uncomfortable. Sonny Hostin, with a carefully measured tone, finally spoke. "Tom, I think what Joy is trying to say is that many people feel hurt, confused. They don't understand how someone as influential as you can support an institution accused of silencing dissent." Tom gave a tight nod. "I understand the concern. I really do. But there's a difference between discussing faith and launching a character assassination. I've never denied that allegations exist. What I reject is the idea that my personal beliefs give you the right to ambush me." Joy leaned in voice, now icy calm. "Tom, no one ambushed you. This is called accountability." Tom stared back. "Accountability involves facts, not assumptions." Joy fired back instantly. "Fine. Let's talk facts. Have you ever financially contributed to Scientology-affiliated programs?" "Yes," Tom said without hesitation. "I have. And I believe in the work they do to help people." Joy shot her next arrow, even when those people are pressured to disconnect from their families. "That's a misrepresentation of the policy," Tom replied. "But again, that's not what I'm here to discuss." Joy didn't back down, but it's what we're discussing. The tension finally cracked. Tom exhaled deeply, clearly, battling to keep from walking out again. "You want me to give you a soundbite. You want me to either denounce my faith or look like I'm complicit in abuse. That's not a conversation, Joy. That's a trap." Joy folded her arms, then walk into it, or walk out. But don't sit there and pretend you're being civil when you're dodging. Tom stood. I'm not dodging. I'm drawing a line. Whoopi rose from her seat, attempting once more to defuse the moment. Let's take a break. This is clearly getting too heated. But neither Tom nor Joy moved. Tom looked Joy in the eyes. I have never in my life used my name to hurt anyone. I've tried to help, to inspire. That's what acting is about. That's what my mission has always been. Joy scoffed. Your mission, Tom, has been to sell tickets while hiding behind your fame. Tom clenched his jaw. My mission has been to live with integrity. You don't have to like it, but you will not redefine it for me. There was a beat of silence. Then something unusual happened. A voice from the audience called out, "Let him speak." The crowd murmured in agreement. A second voice chimed in, "This isn't a courtroom. Joy, back off." Joy's eyes darted toward the audience, clearly annoyed by the loss of control. Tom noticed. He seized the moment. "You see?" he said. People are tired of this, of one-sided media trials, of gotcha moments. They want truth, not theater, Joy retorted. If it were theater, you'd be loving it. Tom ignored the jab. No, Joy, I'd be directing it. What's happening here is something else entirely. Sonny leaned forward again. Tom, would you be willing to appear on a separate program to discuss this in depth? One focused just on the faith issue, Tom considered it. I'd be open to that. As long as it's not framed as an attack, Joy interrupted. That's the problem, you think any question is an attack. Tom sighed. No, I think loaded accusations disguised as questions are an attack. At that moment, a producer stepped onto the set and whispered into Whoopi's ear. She nodded solemnly. We're going to commercial, she said. This has gone beyond what any of us anticipated. The cameras cut, the stage lights dimmed, but the tension remained. As the audience buzzed and the hosts gathered their thoughts, Tom turned toward Joy one last time. I came here because I believe this show could handle a real conversation. I see now that was a mistake. Joy didn't look at him. He turned and walked off stage, not in rage this time, but in weary disappointment. Backstage producers swarmed around him, offering apologies. Tom waved them off, silent. He didn't need comfort. He needed clarity. Back at the table, Joy reached for her glass of water, her hand trembling slightly. No one said anything. The View had just lived up to its name and then some, and the story was far from over. When the show returned from commercial break, the atmosphere had shifted. The audience, once lively and curious, now sat in tense silence. Tom Cruise was gone from the stage, replaced by an empty chair that felt heavier than any presence. Whoopi Goldberg attempted to salvage the moment. We're going to pivot the conversation, she said gently, but first let me say that The View is a space for strong dialogue. And sometimes that means things get uncomfortable. Joy Behar didn't flinch. She sat forward, adjusting her posture, her eyes scanning the camera with the confidence of someone who believed she had done exactly what needed to be done. Behind the scenes, social media erupted. Tom V's Joy trended instantly. Clips of the confrontation spread like wildfire. Some hailed Joy as a fearless truth-teller. Others slammed her for ambushing a guest. Kareen, one of the show's senior producers, reviewed the flood of incoming comments backstage. We've got a 50-50 split, she murmured. This is going to blow up. Meanwhile, Tom sat in a private lounge, still in his stage makeup, scrolling through his phone. Messages poured in support from colleagues, outrage from fans, offers from rival networks for follow-up interviews. His publicist, Diane, sat beside him. We can spin this, she said. Go on, Fallon, tell your side. Show that you're not afraid to talk. Tom nodded slowly. It's not fear, Diane. It's disgust. That wasn't journalism, that was personal. Back at the studio, the panel moved on ostensibly, but the shadow of the confrontation lingered. Sonny Hostin addressed the elephant in the room. We all have different views on how to handle interviews, but I think it's important we ask, where's the line between accountability and attack? Sarah Haynes added carefully, I think viewers can handle the truth, but they also expect fairness. That wasn't balanced. Joy remained resolute. You can't invite someone like Tom Cruise and not talk about the giant elephant in the room. He's used his influence for decades. That comes with scrutiny, Whoopi interjected. True. But we also owe it to ourselves and to our guests to create space for discussion, not just confrontation. The conversation turned introspective, but it was clear the damage had been done. Later that evening, Tom released a short video on his personal social media. Seated in front of a simple background, he looked tired but composed. "I appeared on The View today to discuss a film I care deeply about," he said. Instead, the focus turned to my personal beliefs. While I respect the right to ask tough questions, I reject tactics designed to shame or corner people for their faith. I'll continue to advocate for open conversations, but I won't participate in ambush journalism. The post gained millions of views in hours. Major outlets picked it up, adding to the firestorm. CNN aired a segment featuring both Joy's confrontation and Tom's rebuttal. Commentators were split. She had every right to ask those questions, one anchor argued. These are serious allegations. Yes, another responded, but tone and context matter. This was not a panel, this was a trial. Across the political spectrum, pundits weighed in. Conservative sites hailed Tom as a victim of leftist media. Progressive outlets praised Joy for holding him accountable. In Hollywood, actors chimed in. Some remained neutral. Others rallied to Tom's defense. Leah Remini tweeted, "Not surprised by what happened on The View, proud of Tom for staying calm." Meanwhile, ABC executives met behind closed doors. "This isn't just a viral moment," said one executive. "This could impact future bookings. Celebrities will hesitate, or it boosts our ratings," another replied. "Conflict sells." Still, a letter was drafted to be sent to Tom as an apology for the handling of the segment. Joy was informed but unfazed. "They'll get over it," she muttered. The fallout continued into the weekend. Think pieces flooded the internet, podcasts debated ethics, YouTube creators broke down the confrontation frame by frame. One particular moment gained special attention when Tom said, "You don't get to use your chair on this show as a pulpit." It was clipped, captioned, and circulated. That line resonated beyond celebrity culture. It sparked broader debates about media, religion, and free speech. By Sunday, The View's upcoming Monday episode was already being hyped. The panel responds to Tom Cruise, the teaser read, but everyone knew it wouldn't be the same without him. Back in Los Angeles, Tom considered his next move. Diane walked in with a folder. Requests are coming in. Anderson Cooper, Oprah, even Rogan. Tom smiled faintly. "Maybe I'll pick one, but on my terms." He opened the folder. This time, he'd be the one asking the questions. Monday arrived like a tidal wave. As promised, The View aired a full segment on the confrontation with Tom Cruise. The title card read, "Reflecting on Friday." The panel Whoopi Sunny. Sarah and Joy sat together, tension clinging to the air. Whoopi opened soberly. "What happened last week was difficult for Tom, for us, and for the audience. We're going to talk about it openly." Joy looked composed, but there was a flicker of restraint in her voice. "I stand by my questions. They were tough but necessary." Sarah interjected, "But how we ask questions matters too. The tone, the setup, it all adds to how the message is received." Behind the scenes, ABC's PR team was in full crisis mode. Viewership had spiked over 6 million live viewers, 20 million online views, and a 40% surge in ad engagement. But talent relations had taken a hit. Publicists were emailing in droves. "Is your show a trap?" one asked. Tom, meanwhile, was reviewing options. He hadn't spoken since the video statement. Diane entered his office, waving her phone. "You're trending again. Even people who don't agree with you say Joy crossed a line." Tom rubbed his temple. "Let's wait. Let this settle." But settling wasn't in the cards. Joy had stoked a fire that touched more than Scientology. She had reopened a conversation about how media uses its platform. That evening, Joy gave an exclusive interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper. "I wasn't attacking his beliefs," she insisted. "I was questioning how he supports an institution accused of systemic abuse." Anderson replied, "But some feel it crossed into personal territory." Joy raised an eyebrow. "So we just never ask the hard questions because someone's famous." In LA, Tom watched the clip and sighed. "She's still spinning it," he muttered. The real surprise came on Tuesday. A former high-ranking member of Scientology, now a whistleblower, released a blog post titled "Joy was right but wrong in delivery." In it, the whistleblower confirmed many of the allegations Joy referenced, but they also condemned the format of the confrontation. It felt less like seeking justice and more like a public execution. Tom reposted it with a single word, exactly. Wednesday. The View returned to lighter fare. Celebrity chefs, book recommendations, but the cloud lingered. Ratings held strong. Thursday, Tom made a surprise appearance on The Tonight Show. The audience gave him a standing ovation. Fallon welcomed him with warmth. Not the week you planned, huh? Fallon joked. Tom smiled. Not quite. But I'm here. I think we all need to talk more and shout less. They discussed the movie, the crew, the joy of storytelling. Then Fallon asked carefully, "Do you think you'll go back to The View?" Tom took a breath. Maybe. But next time I'll bring my own questions. Laughter and applause. Online memes exploded. Edits of Tom's final mic drop, reaction videos, debates. But one post stood out. A young viewer previously indifferent to these topics tweeted, "This isn't about Tom or Joy. It's about how we argue, how we treat each other when we disagree." Tom retweeted it, added this. By Friday, the story had begun to fade, but the ripple effects remained. Hollywood agents added new clauses to contracts, no surprise segments. Talk shows held emergency meetings. How far is too far? And The View, though, still faced renewed scrutiny. Backstage, Joy stood alone, watching an unaired cut of the confrontation. Her face unreadable. For the first time, perhaps she wondered not if she had been right, but if she had been kind.